Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. You're watching another episode of The Naturalist Capitalist, and I'm Reed Coverdale. And today I've got a very special guest on the show. I've got Brad Barron, who's running for United States Senate from Kentucky. How you doing, Brad?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for coming on. So just tell us a little bit about who you are, what you've done for a living, and why you decided to run for Senate this year. Why now?
Okay. Yeah, well, I've been a businessman most of my life. I've had various businesses, some for-profits, and I run a not-for-profit as well, the CEO of that. And I'm a regenerative farmer. That's really where I'm taking most of my stuff towards on the business end, as well as trying to branch out from that. It's an eco-friendly way of farming. And, I think it's something that is needed, as we, to protect the environment, but also from a capitalistic standpoint, it's the right way to go. And I'm going to do on the webpage, because a lot of people ask, like, well, what's a regenerative farmer? But I really can't get into all that. I mean, it would take up the entire hour doing that. So I'm getting ready to do a video on the webpage and on the Facebook page explaining that to everyone, because it's a question that's often asked. The reason I decided to run is this authoritarianism has just taken hold. And I feel that McConnell is the head of the authoritarian snake in D.C. I think most of the problems that we have now in one way or another have been connected through the years to this is McConnell's America. I know that Trump is out in the forefront. I remember watching a Noam Chomsky interview one time, and Noam was saying that Trump gets all the credit and the blame, but while he's out there making noise in the forefront, the wrecking crew's going on behind the scenes. And McConnell he doesn't, I always tell people, he doesn't need your validation and he doesn't want your validation. He wants to be able to do what he wants to do behind the scenes and move things where he wants to move them. And that's what he's been doing for quite some time. And, here in Kentucky, we have an interesting dynamic, as you know. We have Rand Paul and Thomas Massie.
Right.
So I feel like libertarianism wants to take a stronghold here in Kentucky, but Mitch is what stands in the way. And it's so bad that we haven't even denied where we're coming from here. Because, as a libertarian, we hear well, what if you get Amy McGrath elected? The Democrats, so be it. If that's what it takes to put this head of the DC swamp out, then we'll survive, but at least we'll have a plan after that, and we'll be heading in the right direction. And really, there's not much that separate the two at the end of the day. You know this. I mean, that's kind of the false narrative they like to play is, oh my God, if Amy McGrath's elected. Well, Amy McGrath's a fighter pilot.
Yeah.
You've got two people there that are military industrial complex people.
Yeah.
If she wins and you see her voting record, you're not going to be able to tell much difference between her and McConnell. So that's where I do like how we're attacking this, because we're not being apologetic about my run. We're saying, yeah, that's right. Republicans, you may very well end up with Amy McGrath. That's the truth. Right. So you better get over here on Team Barron if you want to select who's going to be your next United States Senator. But there's a good chance, hey, it might wind up being McGrath if you don't come over here and get on board. So, that's kind of how we're attacking it. And it's from a truthful position. That's truly how we feel, that McConnell doesn't get to win by default anymore, and us sit back, and allow it to happen.
Right. Yeah, I want to kind of talk about McConnell first a little bit. He's been in office since 1985, I think, right? And
yeah, he was elected in 84, took office in 85, correct?
Yeah, yes. He's supported pretty much every single war. I mean, I don't really know of one that he's been against. Is that pretty much right? And he votes for every spending bill the Republicans put forward.
And Democrats.
Yeah, and the Democrats mostly. Yeah, he's supportive of the Patriot Act. I mean, he's just like, as you said, the head of the snake in D.C. He's just terrible.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Well, I was listening to your interview, part of it with Berman,
Mm-hmm.
and we have to really let people know that anti-authoritarianism is the key here. That's
Right.
the foundation which we need to build from, is anti-authoritarianism. And I think the good thing is we're going into a time that I think that overall people are just not accepting. And I always say authoritarianism is because I told you so, or because I said so. And people aren't accepting that anymore. And really, yeah, this older generation that are on their last legs voting, they're holding up a sinking ship here. And I tell them, why don't you get on board with people like us that you can accept what we're all about? And that's one of the things I like. The older Republicans, for instance, like, but Brad, he's the majority leader. I'm like, who cares? I mean, for one thing, that's a made up position anyways,
Right.
and all that does is holds the duopoly in place. And what's the difference? I tell the Democrats, I don't even know why you run anybody against McConnell. He is the do nothing Democrat.
Yeah, no, it's totally
Yeah.
true. So you were saying there's no real difference between McConnell and McGrath, and I think to you and me, that's pretty true. But to a lot of people who maybe don't dive deep into the issues, they see a woman who's a fighter pilot, who really seems like she's going to shake things up. So how do you expose her as being just a younger, nicer looking version of McConnell? How do you really show your voters that you're the change candidate, she's not?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's quite easy. I always joke and say their last names are, you got McConnell and McGrath, opposite sides of the same coin. I think tying it into the military industrial complex, that here you have someone that, and not taking a shot at the military, just taking a shot at her and the way that, I mean, the things she's been involved in. And we have a lot of people in the LP, as you know, that came from the military.
Right.
We have a lot, especially Marines, a lot of Marines that I would question if she's not able to see what has went on while she's been in the military, and she didn't come out as kind of a, look, we need a strong defensive military, but what we've got going on interventionist policy wise is not good. If she can't see that, then she has no business in the United States Senate. That's for sure. And she was in a debate. She ran for Congress here and lost a few years back. And we had a libertarian that was running against her, Frank Harris. And Frank told me that when he mentioned our interventionist policy of how many bases we have everywhere, he said it was like a look of deer in the headlights and kind of shock and disgust that he'd even bring that up.
Wow.
So I mean, I'll hammer on that. And plus, Kentucky isn't the most Democrat friendly state anyways. So, I mean, she's not going to be nearly the problem that McConnell is.
Right.
This is a deep red state. But the thing that she does have going for her, and the angle that we have, is that they are, to use a little military industrial complex jargon with you, they're putting a war pension behind this woman. She's going to outraise Mitch McConnell. Mm-hmm. And I was told the other day that if it's within 2 points between McConnell and McGrath going at the stretch, down the stretch, that they're willing to put $1 billion of dark money into this race. Both sides, that they think it could reach up $1 billion. And I mean, think about that for a minute. This was a $175,000 to $200,000 a year job, if we look at it from that standpoint. Yeah. That should be a service job. Like I always say, anyone that wants to be in DC, you should not elect them. And I don't want to be there. I'd much rather be on my farm doing the fun things and, watching the kids grow up. But it's a sense of duty that drives me there. And there shouldn't have to be a such thing as term limits. No one should want to be there for a lifetime. Right. But these people that do, I mean, and one of the things I always tell people, they say, but Brad, we like you, especially Republicans, the liberty-oriented Republicans say, we like you, but Mitch just knows how it works up there. I'm like, sure he does, and that's not a good thing.
Yeah, you bring something up interesting there, liberty Republican, and that's probably how Rand and Massey would describe themselves. They're like very libertarian-leaning Republicans. But you're actually a libertarian, and something I've heard you say in a lot of your videos is that, libertarians are not Republicans, they're not Democrats, we're something completely different. And there was an interesting race that happened against Amy McGrath. It was Charles Booker, a progressive Democrat, and it was a very tight race, and a lot of people thought he might win. I think you have an opportunity to get some of his supporters, maybe because you can be more impressive to them on things like criminal justice reform and drug laws, and what you were saying about the military-industrial complex. And then you can also reach out to Republicans on the right saying, like, look at Mitch McConnell, look at all your money he's spending, look at how he doesn't really protect the Second Amendment all the time. You have all these issues that you can really reach a wide array of people, I think.
Yeah, and the environment as well with the progressives. One of the good things that I've seen is I read an article saying that the young Republicans are just not accepting burying your head in the sand on the environment. And I guess the establishment's having a little bit of a problem with it because they're just not accepting that we can continue to just destroy the environment and that's sustainable. So, I'm appealing to them a lot as well through volunteerism, saying we don't need a Green New Deal. We can do this if we just put our heads together. And if you remember, once upon a time, conservation and taking care of the environment was something that the right prided itself upon. I mean, look back to Teddy Roosevelt. That's what we need to do is get that under control, because one of the things I tell them is you can bury your head in the sand, but there's a whole climate change movement that's a rolling stone. It's here. It's something we're going to have to address and deal with. And I don't even get into the climate argument. I say doing the right thing with it, doing right for the environment is always the right choice. So I'm like, you're not going to trap me into a climate change debate. I'm saying we need to take care of the environment all the time, and that shouldn't even be a partisan issue. Right. And so that's where I go with that. And I say, look, McConnell and McGrath, D's and R's for the most part, they're ill-equipped for this new world that we're in now. I mean, the whole COVID situation, how they just bury their heads in the sand on certain issues, both sides. It's not a time for that. It's a time for hammering things out, real ideas that are with the zeitgeist of the times now. These old parties are ill-equipped. And you probably heard, if you've heard me in the video say before, the Scott Horton rule. We're better than the right at the things they think they're great at, and better than the left on the things they think they're great at. And I think you can feel it, in the air with libertarianism. People are looking at it more now. And I try to sell a form of good, call it just good common sense libertarianism, that we know that there's nuance to issues and everything can't be 100% one way or the other. Right. But we have to be able, having both sides just balk at each other on all the issues, and it be this divide and conquer team sports environment that we're in now, or climate, is not going to work. No. It's one party stays and then they try to rush through everything they want to do. Nature and the environment doesn't give a crap about D's or R's or whatever. We've got to get this thing handled, and and they offer no real solutions.
Right. What I really like about your campaign is, to me, you are the hope candidate. I look at the other two, and I'd say Amy McGrath might be a little more inspiring than Mitch McConnell. I mean, Mitch McConnell's just there. You wouldn't want to live.
You wouldn't want to live on the difference. You wouldn't want to live on the difference.
No. But you are obviously the guy who's charismatic, and you seem like you're excited about the change you're bringing. And I think the Libertarian Party needs guys like you, because, like you said, you're a common sense libertarian, which is kind of why I have this show going. My whole point of this show is to try to show people that we're not just a bunch of crazy idiots who only care about, unregulated machine guns. Like, there are issues that we have nuance on, and we care about everything that's going on. So I'm really excited watching your race and seeing you bring that dynamic in.
Yeah. Well, and Booker brought it to a certain extent. I always say he brought the movement. He's just horrible on policy. It reminds me, and you probably heard me say this too as well, that I heard Charles Koch talking about Bernie Sanders. And he said, Bernie's right on most everything. He's just wrong about the solutions, in his opinion. And that's kind of how I felt with Booker. I want to tell him, when you find yourself in a hole, stop digging.
Yeah.
No
Right.
one's oppressed the minorities more than the government. So throwing more of it out there, more government equals more police, which equal more laws, more rules. And
Right.
where's that gotten us?
Yeah. No, that's
Yeah.
totally true.
Yeah.
I so the Rand Paul, the senator we just brought up, he introduced the Justice for Breonna Taylor Act. Has Amy McGrath endorsed that piece of legislation or said anything about it, or is she not?
Obviously I have, but
Right.
she has, and some of it I can't blame her on, because McConnell is a master politician, trickster. Wesley Morgan calls him I'm not going to repeat it on here, but part of it's old geezer tyrant.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's some other choice words that he likes to throw in there as well in regards to McConnell. And but she has to watch for stepping on landmines. And I think should have endorsed it. To my knowledge, she has not endorsed it, but I think she should have. And being wishy-washy, the other landmine, I mean, Mitch is kind of trapping her, in my opinion. If you don't take a stand, then we're going to get you. And if you do take a stand, we're going to get you. That's what you have to watch with McConnell. But I think there are certain things that she needs to be a rolling stone on if I were the one advising her. But who knows? Maybe McConnell's got one of his people in her camps as an advisor. I mean, this guy's a master politician.
Yeah.
And I think something like Breonna Taylor is cut and dried for me. You see how decisive I am about the issue. I don't have to give it much thought. Just like with the guy commenting I told you about on the Twitter, don't start your virtue signaling yet. And just using that terminology, you know what you're dealing with. Yeah. And this guy called himself on his page, it says MAGA constitutionalist. Well, I left the MAGA out. I said, you call yourself a constitutionalist, you should have no problems with the question that I put up there at all. You should be going to bat for me.
Yeah, but banning no-knock warrants should be a no-brainer if you're a constitutionalist.
And then I asked him, I said, did you send Rand a message telling him to stop the virtue signaling? When he introduced the Justice for Breonna Taylor Act, did you do that? And he hasn't responded. And maybe he has since we've been on here, but he hadn't. But those people always amuse me.
Yeah.
With that kind of nonsense. But it's out there, and you just have to deal with it. And I'm not going to compromise my principles for that. You're going to lose some votes over it, but hopefully you gain some, on the other side that says, and moderate Republicans, they know, because these people are pro Second Amendment and they're not high on people kicking their doors in while they're asleep either.
Right.
But those ones that aren't going to see it, you just have to let them fall to the wayside, in my opinion. They're not going to vote for you anyways. They're the ones that they're looking for one reason. And that's what I say is the advantage of an incumbent like McConnell. People have already kind of weighed how terrible he is into the equation. But he's looking for one thing he can grill you on to get him to doubt, well, I'm going to go ahead and vote for the devil that I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why I'm not running like that. I'm running, like you said, an enthusiastic. I believe in my vision. And I'm going to run on it. And he's not going to make me be apologetic about anything or backtrack about any of it. And I think to a certain extent, people appreciate that as well, that You're not going to move me around politically. For me, I always say what's funny is if I lose this, I go back to doing what I do. McGrath loses, where does that leave her? 2 failed races. If McConnell loses, where does that leave them? But for me, I'm 42. I still have good ideas. I'm obviously running to win, but a great position to be in is when you kind of have nothing to lose.
Right.
I can say what I think because I'm not, and they're not going to give me their talking points. And one of the things, me not being bought and paid for, I can say, you know what? I don't have to think and hum-haw around when I'm asked a question about, well, what do my corporate donors think about this? I don't have to think through that. I can just give the answer.
Yeah, I really like Rand Paul a lot. Don't get me wrong. He is my favorite Republican out there, and he does stick to his principles more than almost anyone else, but he still has compromised his principles on some key votes in the past, and it's because he has to cater to the Republican Party. You don't have to do that. You're a libertarian. There is no Libertarian Party establishment that is going to be controlling you once you get in office. That's the beautiful thing about being a libertarian. You can stay to your principles even after you get elected. You look at Justin Amash now, how he has been, just on fire since he left the Republican Party. He can say and vote however he wants. I mean, that's the beauty of this, right?
He probably feels like a big weight has been lifted off of him. Well, and I think that me being elected would just help Rand so much. He wouldn't have, I mean, when you talk about the leadership of the party, yes, there's leadership, but we all know who that leadership is. It's McConnell.
Right.
It's an authoritarian system of, I mean, it's kind of the opposite of libertarianism, like we were saying earlier. Mitch goes wherever the political winds are blowing at the time to get reelected. He singularly has one goal, and that's reelection. So whatever it takes to get him to that is what matters.
Right.
And that's exactly what we don't need.
Right.
But Rand, I think life would be a lot easier on Rand if Mitch was headed on into retirement.
Yeah.
I even think life would be easier on Rand if McGrath were elected. He'd then be the senior senator from Kentucky. He'd be the man in that regard, and he wouldn't be taking all the pressure from his own party as much. I think he could grab the reins and lead that party, which would be beneficial to them in a direction of liberty.
Right.
And Massey being a younger congressman as well. I think it would just be great for the state. I think McConnell needs to go. Obviously, we don't want the Democrat, but I'm not going to be scared of it. Right. They're not going to shame.
I mean, it's like six on half a dozen on the other. It doesn't make any difference. So have Rand or Massey, have they made any moves toward not necessarily endorsing you, but have they done anything to reach out to you or talk to you or elevate you at all? Or
Rand and I live in the same county, and we've met. And I think Rand, I understand. We talk about compromising principles, but at the same time, we need Rand in the Senate.
Right.
I mean, we have to be realists at times, and there are certain things if he does, they're going to blackball him, and they're going to make life horrible for him, and we're not going to be moving things in the direction of liberty. So right. I think by Rand just staying out of this sends a message, here in Kentucky, because, especially the Republican Party, they're paying close attention to what Rand's doing. They're paying close attention to what Massey's doing. Now, I will go as far as to say that if Rand or Massey were to endorse McConnell, that could be really bad for them as well. Because you probably see, like on Twitter, I have a lot of liberty-minded folks and a lot of young folks saying, Rand, Massey, where are you at with this Barron guy? Why aren't we seeing anything? But if you know, Rand has really upped his tweet game and what he's doing here recently towards liberty, and he's being aggressive with it. So if he can do that, that'll be fine. I just don't want him or Massey endorsing Mitch.
Right. Yeah. So if they just stay out of it completely, don't endorse Mitch, that's pretty much an endorsement for you, is what you're saying.
Yeah. And I really think that they should, because I'm telling you, this, I've ran a real race here, not to take anything away from libertarians, but you know how it is sometimes. Some of them are kind of paper tight. I'm running a real race, and there's money being put into it. We've made the debate stage. This isn't just, I'm going to put my name on the ballot and I'm working another job. I mean, I've freed my schedule to be able to do all this for a year.
You've made the general election debate stage. You'll be up there. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Yes, I have.
Okay.
No, first libertarian ever to debate McConnell.
Oh my! Wow, that is really cool, man. Congratulations.
Thank you. That's we had to raise $100,000 to do it. That's the requirement here. We don't have to spend it with KET, but we have to raise it through donations.
Wow, I'm going to be. When's the first debate? Do you know?
Well, there'll probably only be one. Mitch normally only does one debate, and it's right before the election in October, around mid-October. I'm going to put it out there to everyone once I get the exact date.
All right. Well,
but he may pull some shenanigans to try to keep me out. He does whatever it takes. He didn't. When you think about a guy like him being elected as many times as he has, and he's not exactly what you'd call the most charismatic guy out there.
No.
He's,
No,
he's great.
Yeah, I really like this because I feel like libertarians have made the mistake of acting like Republicans are our closer allies and the Democrats are communists that we want nothing to do with, and that's completely wrong, you know. And so I really like seeing you go after McConnell like this. This is really cool because this is what the Libertarian Party needs to do. We need to, you know, the established Republicans are
you saying
running.
you're enjoying going after a Democrat like McConnell? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I enjoy going after the Democrat Mitch McConnell. Well, and one of the things here in Kentucky is he wins a lot of ways by default. He figures, you know, if I can just be a little bit better in his mind, you know, than the Dems, then I'll win. No matter how bad I am, they're still not voting for the Democrat, you know, and that's what he runs on for the most part. And you know, he just leaves here and goes and does what he wants after he wins. You don't hear much from him for about 5.5 years until it's election time. And then he appears and throws some of his pork out, you know, his money, and people are like, oh, what will we do without Mitch? We're only ranked 47th in education, 46th in the economy. If we didn't have Mitch, where would we be? We are stepping down off the lower rung of a step stool here.
Yeah, I love that. So if you win, what are the most important issues to you going to be if you're actually in the U.S. Senate? What type of reforms are you really going to be pushing for?
Well, things like this justice for Breonna Taylor are important to me because I think that it all starts tearing this thing down and getting it where it needs to be. You know, the police are a touchy issue because, you know, you don't want to look like, I mean, you want to stand with the police that are trying to just, you know, do best for society. And they think that, you know, there needs to be some order out there. I mean, there's a lot of people that have that mindset. So what I say is, you know, stand with the good police and work with them to try to figure out, for starters, with like these police unions and whatnot, how can we help to make your job easier to get rid of these bad actors? Because, you know, if we took care of the bottom 15% that has no business there, then that would make things better. That's moving in the right direction. So for me, like this justice for Breonna Taylor, where we immediately let's, you know, and let's defend the police a little bit here. When they're told to go on these no-knock raids, it's just a recipe for disaster so many times. Look at how many things can go wrong if they're hesitant, you know, if they're too aggressive. I mean, these no-knock raids, I mean, just eliminating those immediately. Let's eliminate this kind of stuff would be one of my number one concerns. You're not going to go kicking doors down over marijuana. Those days are over. Obviously, making it known that the Second Amendment is you might as well not come to me with any red flag law legislation or any of that kind of stuff. I would say I'll even sign an affidavit that says if it's about gun regulations, you don't even need to come to my office. Just check me as a no. You know, don't even need to bother me while I'm up there. Just say, oh, we got some gun regulations here. Well, Brad, we don't even need to bring him down here for roll call. He's an automatic no. And the other thing I'm going to say is, of course, we have to get this spending somewhat in check. I mean, for the love of God. You know, when McConnell took over as majority leader, well, when he was running in 2014, he was running against a Democrat challenger here in Kentucky by the name of Allison Lundergan Grimes. And when they were on the debate stage, he told Mrs. Grimes, he said, well, you got to elect me. If we let you liberals, you know, in that Mitch drawl, we let you liberals handle things, where can this debt go? And I'm going to ask him, well, Mitch, when you took over, it was $14 trillion. Where exactly can it go? You're putting new meaning to the phrase, the sky's the limit.
Right.
And so we have to get some type of a sustainable, I would be interested in looking and introducing bills. And a lot of people will say, well, just vote no, that's libertarian. I'm like, not really. I'm like, because we need a little populism to get things back. Because right now, if we just went to a straight libertarian world, we're closing the barn doors after the animals are out. How much cronyism has allowed certain people to get in positions of power?
Right.
You know, we need to return powers to the individual and get them on a level playing field with all the rest of the individuals first.
Right.
So that's why one of the other things I would be looking at is when you bring me a spending bill or a tax bill or whatever, I'm going to say burden of proof falls on the government to provide value. You can't go in there immediately with taxation and theft. You can't scare grandma and say, we're yanking your Social Security away, Medicare, Medicaid. And truthfully, I don't think as libertarians we should do that, because these are coerced, forced contracts that these poor people were forced into by the government to begin with. Yeah, but we also know that it's not sustainable, especially if we didn't have this farce of a fiat currency. There's no way it's sustainable under any kind of a real currency program. And so I would have to say, okay, whatever's going on here, we're going to start out with, it's going to provide value for the people. That's number one. And it's not, I had an older gentleman tell me that was in politics. He said, I'm not going to lie, we always used to skim some off the top. He's like 96 now. And he said, but the bulk of it went to the people. He said, now the bulk of it goes to the people, and the people are lucky if they can skim some off of these bills.
Right.
And that really hit me hard. You know, you look at like these bailouts, well, not bailouts, but the stimulus package. Well, the bailouts too, but the stimulus package, how much of that money actually went into circulation to the people, so to speak? And how much of it was just a big slush fund to their corporate donors? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I really like what you're saying there. Your idea is we can't just scare people with these one-liners that we like to throw at them in the past, like Social Security on day one, we're going to end Medicare on day one. No one's going to vote for you, first of all, and that's not a solution to just slice it, because as you said, these are systems that the government has forced people to be involved with since day one, and so it's not their fault. It's not like they're choosing to do this, so we need to give them a pathway away from these things that we have.
Mm-hmm. And you know, one of the things that bothers me is Mitch wants to say, it's funny because I don't know how much you studied him here in Kentucky, but there's things we know because he says the same stuff. He says, I'm killing their socialism. And I want to look him in the eyes. Are you really killing their socialism, Mitch? I've got pictures of you and Pelosi elbow bumping when you're passing these stimulus plans and these spending bills with that smirk on both of your faces saying, we've just duped the entire population, making them think we're on different sides. Right. There's one side up there for the most part, and that's the overspending, fiscally irresponsible party that has two factions, one's D and one's R. Right.
Yeah, no, that's totally it. I mean, if we can get people like you in there, then you can, we supposedly have these two sides that represent different things. You can actually force them to represent the things that they say they represent. So even if you're the only guy who, I hope a bunch of libertarians get in there, but even if you're the only guy who does, you can tell Democrats, you should stand for civil liberties, you should stand for human rights. And then you can tell the Republicans, you should stand for fiscal responsibility, you should stand for small government. You know, none of you are doing any of the things that you say you stand for. I mean, that is a valid role of a libertarian nowadays, I think, is making both parties live up to what they say they live up to, you know?
And, they backed themselves into a corner where it's allowing libertarianism to shine right now. Is for one thing, they don't offer any real solutions. But secondly, they want to keep the vote so close in the team sports. It's like a barn burner basketball game to where, you got to vote for the Republicans because we can't lose the Senate or the House, or, we got to keep the majority. Well, the problem is that, could you imagine if it was almost a flush between the two of them? Me as a libertarian swing vote would be as powerful as the majority leader.
Oh yeah.
Because, and like you said, and it would do excellently for the country because we would vote with the Democrats on the things that they're right on, and I'd put them over the hump, and then I'd vote with the Republicans on the things they're right on to put them over the hump. So it would truly be, instead of being gridlocked on everything, we'd be moving in the right direction. There has never been a libertarian needed in DC more than right now. I mean, I'm not one to hype up they love to do that whole, well, we can't vote for you this election. Yeah, this is not hyperbole I'm using here. When liberty is on life support.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they've said that as long as I've been alive. I remember we have to, the Republicans always said we have to vote Republican this time, or we're going to have socialism, and the Democrats always say, we got to vote this time, or we're going to have fascism, and it just keeps going on year after year after year, and finally, 4 years ago, I'm pretty young, but I was just like, I already realized I'm done. The D's and the R's, you guys do not have any power over me. I'm only going to vote for you if you put someone good forward. And whenever they put someone good forward, they always squash them out. They don't give them a chance. So
Yeah,
that's why I've gone with the Libertarian Party now. Yeah.
Rand has been impressive that he's been able to do what he does and remain there. Because he often votes against things that, of course, I mean, really, he votes against Mitch probably as much as the Democrats do. I need to get that voting record and see if Mitch actually votes with the Democrats more than he votes with Rand.
He probably does. And I think Rand votes against Trump more than any other senator. Is that right? I think that's
Yeah,
like
he does. I'll tell you, on certain things, he picks good battles with him. And I know it's easy to view from the couch to just hammer on Rand and say, he votes with the president. Well, look, man, it's a disaster up there.
Yeah.
And Rand has to do what he can to keep his head above water. And I'm not making excuses. I'm sure there's times he could have bucked up and, but still, some liberty's better than no liberty in this environment. And but so where I try to do is the art of compromise. I want to say out there, if Rand's listening, if Thomas Massey's listening, you don't have to endorse Brad Barron, but you better not endorse Mitch McConnell. That's the compromise I want to give. Here, I get it. We're being sympathetic, but when you have a candidate that's as liberty oriented as I am and is going at it the way I'm going at it, that's a kick in the face of liberty to endorse Mitch McConnell.
Oh, yeah.
Because you know good and well that Massey and Rand would be voting with me way more than they'd be voting with McConnell if they were able to do what they wanted to do. Absolutely. I mean, they wanted to boot poor Thomas Massey out of D.C. for wanting to take a vote on the largest stimulus package that's ever been passed.
Right.
That's crazy, man. Totally, but that's the authoritarianism. And, I remember listening to something on NPR years ago when this caller said, I don't have any problem with Jesus. It's his fan club that drives me crazy. And it can get that way with Trump. That some of the time, it's not exactly what he's doing at times that's so bothersome. It's how these people that follow him won't just debate. That's what won't debate it out. One of the things I'd like to return to the United States Senate is, you've seen my quote many times. My whole great ideas do not require force. I put it out there all the time. It's not I mean, that's a libertarian, but I'm saying I use it all the time.
Right.
That's a libertarian motto. But what I want to say is, you don't have to shut everything down in the Senate like Mitch does and only bring the bills forward. And I think in some ways he's hurt Donald Trump a lot more than people know, because there are certain bills that I think Trump would like to see come through and make him liked more by a lot of libertarians and Democrats. But Mitch thwarts those and makes sure they never make them. Then he says, well, I'm not going to pass any bill that the president won't sign. I think he puts Trump in a bad position a lot of times, and him holding the keys. I tell people, Mitch holds some of these keys to impeachment. He doesn't need to hold those keys to anyone's impeachment. He needs to take facts in if there's an impeachment hearing, whether it's Democrat, Republican, or Libertarian, and look at the facts. And it doesn't need to be, well, I'm protecting my party. There's times when everyone should rise above all that. And I think that's what kind of killed Justin Amash with the Republicans. You can go against the president on some things. You don't go against him on impeachment.
No. Yeah. So was Amy McGrath really supportive of impeachment? Is that something that she really pushed for? Is that going to give you an edge that she won't have?
To think about this probably tells the answer. She probably just steered clear of it. Okay. I can look it up, but I don't know off the top of my head, if she probably said something along the lines of, well, if the evidence is there, then and then I would support it. She's definitely, I don't recall her giving any kind of a solid stance. And of course, Mitch is absolutely not. They'll never impeach President Trump with me there, and I'm the one that makes sure of it in Kentucky. So you have to vote for me. If not, Nancy Pelosi's going to impeach him, and he's going to be gone. And I like to tell him, Trump's a big boy. He doesn't need you. Yeah. And as a matter of fact, I mean, just reaching out to some of the people that love Trump, they might find a better Trump that is liked by the other sides if he were to be reelected and he didn't have Mitch McConnell to deal with. Right. You know, Mitch is, I always say, he is the epitome of beware of wolves in sheep's clothing. I've always said Mitch would rather have Joe Biden, because to be an authoritarian fascist, you need an enemy.
Yeah.
And he's way better as the protector of the Republican fight. See, he takes crap being, you know, when Trump wants something, or Trump goes out and tweets, I want this, and McConnell doesn't really want it, then people are saying, Mitch, why aren't you doing what the president wants? In your authoritarian universe, he's a step above you, so you need to follow suit. You know, Parliament needs to vote with the Queen or the King.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I've always thought was Mitch wants to make the United States Senate like Parliament. Yeah. But think about the ideas that have been hashed out on that Senate floor through the history of this country. You know, considered to be the greatest deliberative body in the world at one time. Look what he's done to it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
there's more action going on in this interview than there is most times on the Senate floor.
Yeah, no kidding. And I like what you're saying about the fact that he really holds Trump hostage, because I think that's true, because Trump is really a wild card. In my mind, he doesn't really have any particular philosophy. He's kind of floating around and, you know, occasionally bounces into an idea that we agree with or that someone else agrees with. But if you got rid of his gatekeeper McConnell, imagine if you were there instead, how different of a President Trump we'd have, because Trump wants to be popular. He wants to be liked. He doesn't, I mean, I'm sure he hates the position he's in right now, where everybody is bickering about him and hating on him. Like, he would love to do something that would make the whole country love him. And if you had some sensible Congress that would pass good legislation for him to sign, he would not veto it, I don't think. You know, he'd be a much better president, like you said.
But my opinion on it is not one that's good. My opinion is that Pelosi and Mitch are the same thing.
Right.
And they don't want a good Donald Trump for this country. You know, they don't want the best Donald Trump that we could have. And I think for Trump, you can tell that he's a man under a lot of pressure, and Mitch just gets to hide behind the scenes, and Trump takes all the crap, no matter if you love him or hate him. These are true words that are being said here about what's going on up there. And I think that if you had me up there with Trump, you'd have a totally different Donald Trump. I really believe that. You'd have one that, like you said, he wants, you bring a good bipartisan or tripartisan bill up that everyone can compromise and agree on. And let's say we say, hey, it might not be perfect for all of us, but by gosh, it's heading us in a better direction than we're going. He'd sign it and be happy to.
Yeah.
But McConnell is a negative energy chaos magician, so to speak. And I just thought of that right off the top of my head. I think I'm going to use that more. That he doesn't want that Trump that, you know, I remember when Trump won and his acceptance speech. I don't know if you watched it. When he was toned down, you know, I mean, even Democrats, and they were like, well, you know, if we got that Trump all the time. But I think, you know, McConnell gouges and goads and keeps everything, you know, I mean, is maneuvering all the time to put pressure on Trump, and then comes out like, I love Trump. I do whatever Trump says. I'm the Trump. Listen, if the all-seeing eye of the country would shift to Mitch McConnell and say, we're really going to take a long, hard look at the moves this guy makes, how he votes, how he manipulates, Trump would be breathing a sigh of relief.
Right.
So there's an article out that says Trump's going to get blamed for a lot of the things that have went down in this period of time, but McConnell is the true culprit.
Yes.
You know, there's an article out there talking about it. Yeah. And I wish Trump fans would read that, you know, his supporters, and see that Mitch is not the friend you think he is. Mitch is out for one man, and he happens to share the exact same name with himself, Mitch McConnell. That's the only person he cares about. And I know that sounds cliche and rudimentary, but it can't be stressed enough. I was talking with a guy that's been in politics for a long time, and we said it at about the same time, that when you look at it through the lens of McConnell does always, what's best for McConnell, it's easy to see how he's going to vote, why he's done what he's done. He always, not 99 times out of 100, he always does what's right for Mitch.
Right. So what you're really driving home here is that we have a dysfunctional government. So aside from you winning this election and removing him, which is a great step forward for this country, what can we do moving forward? Is it term limits? Is it ranked choice voting? Like, what can we do to have a more representative government and get these career politicians out here who have been in there for 40 years?
Well, of course, I'm fine with ranked choice voting. Of course, it's always one of those things that's hard to get past, because when people get in, they don't want to bring up that kind of stuff, you know. And I mean, but also this, I want to talk about. I'm glad you brought up term limits.
Mm-hmm.
I used to be against term limits, and then when Citizens United passed, and I was able to see how the incumbent is always in the driver's seat. It is always theirs to lose. And that was the case beforehand, and Citizens United just opened the floodgates for that. Just unlimited. I mean, the very fact that we're talking about that $1 billion could be poured into a Senate race in dark money. I mean, let's just take a moment to let that sink in.
Yeah.
They're like, well, free speech for the corporations. No. See, here's the problem. Tell me the difference between the two big to fail corporations and the very government that is tyrannical. Yeah. And I'll be waiting. But what you get is, and one of the things I like to talk about is a libertarian response to a pandemic. Okay, think about this. If you've got manpower in truckers everywhere, and you've got, one of the reasons I'm big for Thomas Massey's Prime Act,
right,
is you look like meat packing. In a pandemic, if you, through cronyism and over regulations, you get it to where just a couple of businesses control the bingo, so to speak. They control it all. Well, what happens when half their packing plant comes down with COVID-19? You know, that's why we don't want the old saying, one monkey don't stop no show. We need a local, vibrant economy. We need small business, especially in the food market, because that way, if something goes down and you got one state, let's say going forward, there's a huge pandemic, you need to have well, you know, as libertarians, we talk an awful lot about central planning. We don't need that. We need that to branch out from the community out, and we need vibrant local markets.
Right.
You know, and that's the thing that people like McConnell thwart. They make it to where, one of the things you probably heard me say if you've listened to my videos, that big businesses act like they hate regulations. They love them.
Love them, yeah.
They love them, yeah. So, you know, those kind of things. You know, I think that this COVID-19 situation has shown once again how ill-equipped that this cronyism and duopoly have put us in a position. And this thing has a pretty good survival rate. Think if we had something come over here all of a sudden that was killing 1 out of 4.
Right.
I mean, and like, well, we're waiting on to pass this through on certificate of need laws. You know, is that where we'd be? I mean, so I'm telling people, and people fear anarchy. And I say, well, let me tell you what. You need to fear it in a certain way, because the anarchy you think of isn't the anarchy we would think of as libertarians. The anarchy you're thinking of would come through authoritarianism and cronyism, and there would be anarchy of, oh my gosh, the food supply's down, everything's down, it's chaos. That's what they think of with anarchy. And I'm like, yes, that anarchy could be scary. So let's do something to keep that kind of anarchy from ever happening.
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll start wrapping it up here, but I want to ask you about your campaign going forward. What can we do to help you? Do you need donations? Do you need volunteers? Do you need more interviews? What are you looking for? What can we do to help you? What website? What social media? Just give us the lowdown.
Yeah. Well, my website's bradbarron2020.com. And then Facebook, we changed it. It was Brad Barron for Senate, but it's just Brad Barron now on Facebook. The guy that's doing my marketing wanted it that way and doing the fundraising. So it helps to get all the Facebook certifications to do the Facebook ads and whatnot. But we definitely always need donations. And I always tell people the good things about donating to my campaign is your money goes straight to getting votes and goes straight to moving libertarianism forward. I think you've probably seen where Wesley Morgan, the Liberty Republican that endorsed me, gave me all those sign Spaces. Have you seen that? Yeah. And so
Yeah, I did hear that.
I would say you donate me $30, it goes straight to getting a $30 sign and goes out there. There's
Right.
not a million people chopping at it like the other two parties. They may raise 100 million, but not all 100 of that's going towards things for the election. I mean, I don't have a ton of consultants that I'm paying, and that kind of stuff. My stuff goes straight to Liberty. And so donations are probably the most. And I try to do as many of these videos as I can. And we always need volunteers, and we'll need them more and more as we get forward, as going forward towards the election, or towards the election date, going down the stretch is when your volunteers will come in. But everything, it's a moving target now. I mean, with COVID and the lockdowns and what's going on, you never know from one week to the next what might happen. But, if there was ever a time that a libertarian could come out of left field and take an election.
Yeah, this is it. Yeah.
This is it, because people are just, even though they're playing team sports, they know at a core level that this duopoly isn't cutting the mustard.
Right.
And but they need someone to inspire them, someone to show them a vision, to where when they're asking me, I give them solutions. I don't stand here and say, well, when I get there, I'm going to, just filling it full of fluff, as I like to call it, and we're going to take care of the people that need it. That's okay. We're going to take care of the people that need it, or the people that haven't been getting it. That's a real plan you got going for you there.
Yeah.
Showing people that, first off, we need to be healthy. We need to take care of our bodies. We need to eat right. We need to exercise, because when we're healthy, we're more productive in all ways. Even if you don't want to work, you still feel like it. You feel better. And when you take a society and you bring them down where they don't feel good, then negative energy is what's going to come out of that. Right. So I tell people, the other day I was talking about eating right, and they're like, Brad, there's more pressing issues. I'm like, no, there's not. There is not. I'm like, first off, we have to be healthy right out of the gate, and then we'll build from there. Let's get healthy, and then we'll feel good, and you're not going to be able to trick people as easily when they feel good. And I try to talk to people sometimes like that in a non-political way. I think a lot of times candidates get carried away with trying to use political jargon too much. And 99% of the people you're talking to, they're not staunch in their parties. They turn on Fox or CNN or watch podcasts or videos, and that's what they do. They're not talking all that lingo. You need to be able to talk to the everyday person that's out there. So yeah, so that's kind of where we're at. We can use donations, we can use volunteers, and I'm going to do a lot of videos. But at the end of the day, it takes money to win elections. I don't care how good of a candidate you are. I don't need nearly the money that they do, but I need to be seen as a legitimate, viable candidate that has backing, because that's just necessary in this climate we're in to have that. And they've made it to where money is a big player. But I can also say, look, I don't have the money they do, but look how many different donors I have. Look how many people have sent me $20, $10, $50. I've got the people behind me. Yours are $2,800 max donations from corporations or people that sit on the boards of major corporations that are probably told, hey, rip your checkbook out and cut a check to generic candidate over here.
Yeah.
Not real support. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're certainly running a charismatic, hopeful, and solution-oriented campaign. You certainly have my support, whatever that's worth. And everyone who's watching this video, go help this guy out. We need to get Mitch McConnell out of there. That is the one thing that Amy McGrath is 100% right about, that we do need to remove Mitch McConnell, but we don't want her. We want this guy instead. So go to his website. I'll put a description in the link on the video. I'll put a link in the description on the video to his website and his Twitter page. Go follow him on Twitter, follow him on social media. Just get the word out there for him. And I'll just give you the last word as we close out. Thanks for coming on, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. One of the things I want to mention is something you brought up early on, was the Charles Booker race. And that has agreeable symmetry with what I'm planning to do. Booker just didn't make it all the way there. But I jokingly said to my progressive friends that just love Booker, I said, he's trying to steal what I'm going to do here. Is I've had on my site, let's make history, Kentucky. One of the things I'm going to say is, you vote for voting for me and putting me in the Senate is what's going to get Kentucky the most attention worldwide, and it's going to send a message that Kentucky's not scared. We're not going to be scared and fear vote into voting for the duopoly. It's not going to happen. You put us up a good candidate and we're going to listen. And that's who we're going to elect. Well, Booker was some people knew him, but I would go as far as to say, I'd like to see where he was polling at, but it wasn't much. Relatively unknown. And like that, he was on the national scene. Mm-hmm. And that's the kind of world we're in right now. That one thing, making the right step towards the right thing, you can become a contender overnight. And that's what happened with him, and that's what I plan on doing. I don't know, I always joke about the movie Point Break. I don't know if you're old enough to remember, with Patrick Swayze and Keanu Reeves.
Yep.
And people are like, well, when are you going to blow up? When are you going to do this, Brad? I'm like, I'm just waiting on my set. When that moment presents itself, that it's time for me to really insert and go with that, then that's when I'll do it. And I believe that there will be an opportunity, with the uncertain climate we're in now, when I'm going to be able to insert myself and they'll be like, where did he come from?
Yeah.
And if you look of the old saying, never interfere when your opponents are destroying themselves, they're running commercials against each other, not with their vision for the America and for the world, but with this guy's terrible. No, she's terrible. No, he's worse. That's what, and people get sick of that. And if I can come out at the right time with sustainable solutions going forward and show that I'm the one in tune with the times, that these people truthfully have no idea what's going on, that they're just out here to win elections and drag the other guy down. And I've got a web page full of, here's how I'm going to handle this, here's how I'm going to handle that. And they go over there and it's close to election time. You don't want to peak too early. Booker almost peaked too late. I believe if he had another week, he probably would have won the thing. McGrath had a lot of mail-in ballots that came in before his surge that probably saved her in the end. Mm-hmm. But what it showed was two things. One, people don't love McGrath. She's not inspiring the Democrat Party. And two, people are ready for a movement. Booker represented a movement. We're not taking this anymore. It's over with. We're not taking doors being kicked in and people being shot in the night. These days are over with. This is the new way. And he brought that forward in a way that people grabbed onto it. And I like that he did it, but in a way, I guess it kind of gives me a little libertarian, how should I put it? It bothered me a little bit, ticked me off a little bit. At least it was for a good cause, because a lot of these people like to think they're pioneering in this. We've been preaching this for how long?
A long time.
Yeah, we're the ones that if they tune in, they'll see we've had, when they come up with a great idea, it's an idea we've had forever.
Right.
And that's like, you remember Gary Johnson, I believe it was Gary Johnson that used to say, so many people are libertarians, they just don't know it yet. I think we need to carry that on, that, we're all libertarians now. If you're, yeah. So, but that's it, and it's been a good talk, and thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Everyone go check out his website, and he's right. The Libertarian Party's for everyone, not just one group or another. It's everyone who doesn't want to be a jerk is welcome in the Libertarian Party.
That was what I was kind of trying to grab there, and I just left it alone. If you're a decent person that just wants to be left alone and lead your life and make your own decisions, we're the party for you. And I think that's most people. The mainstream media keeps them at odds. You go out and meet your neighbor, you're not as far off as you think you are. Most people just want to lead their life the way they want it and stay out of, and would appreciate you doing the same, so I think that's where we shine.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for coming on, man, and we'll catch all you guys on the next episode.